You may not know me. My friends know me. I'm Israeli and American, and I'm one of millions of Israelis and Palestinians working tirelessly for a more just and equitable Middle East. And we call for a two-state solution. So with this short video, I want to direct my remarks to the academic communities of the United States and Europe, who most recently are promoting a system of governance and a system of expansion for Palestine. We hear this every day from the river to the sea, and a set of objectives for this Palestinian community. And I think you have no right to do that. You can't speak for the Palestinians. So you don't really know me. Among other things, I taught the politics of modern Israel for 7 years at a major Southern California university. And I want to just tell you a short story about one incident that I had while I was teaching. I always assign 5 deliverables, you know, midterm, final, class presentation. Students have to participate in class, and of course, there's a final paper. And the paper is really the most important thing because they learn how to write a paper, how to do research, how to do citations, everything to do a professional paper. And for most of them, it's the first time they've been challenged to do a paper in a scholarly way. So one year, well, every year I assign these deliverables and I provide a syllabus ahead of the schedule, ahead of the semester. And all students, I ask if they can come to the first day of class with a couple of suggestions they may have for their own papers. And of course, we will modify that as the weeks go on. But I want them all ready to start thinking about what they wonder about. That's really what I ask them. What is interesting to you about the Middle East? What do you want to study? What do you want to research? What do you want to turn into a research question? And then a paper. So I'm going to try and make this as anonymous as I can. I had one student come to me at the end of the first class saying that he or she, I'll just say they, really appreciated, the overview on the first session. And they didn't provide a written question, but now they have an idea of what they really want to write about. And I said, great. So what do you want to write about? And they said, we want to write about Israeli oppression in Gaza. And I said, I don't think I'm going to read it. And they said, oh, here we go again. And I said, what's going on? And they said, I really enjoyed the first session. I thought you'd be different. You're just like all the other professors here. You don't want to hear about the Israeli oppression. And I said, hold on. Sit down for a minute. You got 5 minutes? Let's spend 5 minutes. They said, okay. So I said, when you say the Israelis are oppressing the Gazans, what comes to mind? What are you thinking about? No, I don't know. I said, just name one category. It's just one thing that comes to mind. Well, I mean, they're really poor. Okay, poverty. Give me another category. Uh, well, they don't really have jobs. Great, employment. Another, and instead of calling it a category, let's call it a variable. And let's go further. Let's call it an explanatory variable. Give me a third one. And they said, well, I mean, you're talking about water, and I don't know that they have enough water. And I said, great. So we call that accessibility and availability of fresh water. And let's add to that accessibility to sewerage. Okay. And they're writing notes down. Now I said, so what's your unit level of measurement? And they said, what do you mean? I said, are you researching all Gazans or just the men, just the women, the adults, the kids? So decide what section of society you're going to be examining here. And then do you just want to explain what it is today? Or are you interested in maybe looking at the last 5 years and see if things have gone up, things have gone down? I don't know. Huh. And then maybe you want to compare it to the countries in the area. So you see where I'm going here? So we call those explanatory variables. Great, I'm starting to get it. Okay. So I'll write this up. And I said, well, write it up. But in the meantime, what do you think your next step is? Um, I said, I'll cut to the chase here. I know you have to run to another class. It's research. You got to start reading. So the first thing you have to understand in research is what is considered reliable and valid, internally valid, externally valid, generalizable, replicable information. This is critical. And you can't just use one source, you have to use multiple sources. I can give you phone numbers of people in Gaza. I can give you phone numbers of people, who work in NGOs. But I really want you to first come to me and find, good sources, good reliable sources, and let's make sure they are good objective sources. So over the course of the semester, this person in most of my class really got it. And they wrote their paper 3 and 4 times, and they ended up owning the data, owning the research. So my point to you is that everyone who is demonstrating now and saying that Hamas is the right governance, the objective is to create a Palestinian state from the Jordan to the Mediterranean, you're like this student. You walk in and you've got a placard and you're demonstrating and you've got a slogan. And you don't know what's going on deeper than that. How much time have you spent in Gaza? How much time have you spent in the West Bank? So I'm telling you, there are hundreds of NGOs working in the region today towards peace at the grassroots level, working in every sphere of social interaction, whether it's the arts, whether it's religious reconciliation, whether it's education, whether it's radio and TV, whether it's agriculture, whether it's IT, whether it's medicine. You need to respect what is going on in the region today. And I'm not talking about hundreds of people, I'm talking about millions of people. And you don't know what's going on. You don't know how hard Palestinians and Israelis, and you want to talk about apartheid or any of these other flippant, little dismissive, reductionist terms. A lot of those NGOs are joint Jewish and Muslim Israeli NGOs working to improve quality of life for Arabs living in Israel. There's so much that you don't know. Let me ask you, do you know that in Arab villages in Israel, Sharia law has standing? I'm not going to say, we've solved the problem of racism in the United States because we had a black president. It doesn't work that way. But if you don't know the level of education, if you don't know institutional knowledge, if you don't understand the relationships, have you heard of Parent Circle? Do you know what Parent Circle is? It's a group of Israeli and Palestinian families who get together, whose children have been killed in this conflict, who find the strength to actually sit in the same room and figure out how to go forward with their lives together. You don't. So let's move on. I want to make a couple of other points. Let's talk about Hamas. You have all decided that Hamas is the right governing body for Palestine. So first of all, how dare you? How audacious can you be to suggest that you know better than the Palestinians? Because let me tell you something about Hamas. I'm not going to go through the charter. You should know at least what the charter says. But let's look at the characteristics of Hamas. So Hamas in 2007, you can say was a democratic election, but they really overthrew the existing regime, the existing system, and do not allow any competition in the political sphere. They were elected in 2007 to a 4-year term. You know how many elections there have been since 2007? 0. So we've gone 16 years with no election. Would you say that Hamas is highly conservative? They champion traditional values, very narrowly defined values, particularly as they affect women, because you know that women have to be escorted by men. They are On a social basis, they're very hierarchical. I think everyone would agree with that. They demand obedience to authority. They believe that there is a superiority of race, religion, and nationality embedded in Hamas. I think everyone would agree with that. There's really no room for dissent. There is a demand for public participation. It's not enough to just be benign and just sit back. They demand public participation. It's not enough to dominate the politics, but also control the hearts and minds of the citizenry. I think we would all agree objectively that these are the characteristics of Hamas. And what I just summarized for you is the classic definition of fascism. Hamas is a fascist organization, classic fascist. You look at Mussolini, you look at Nazi. Remember, this was a National Socialist Party. You all think, and the media all think, that you are the darlings of the new left. This is the new left. What happened to the old left? This is the new left. This is the far out extreme left. It's not. It's not. You people supporting Hamas as a governing body for Palestine are on the far extreme right. You are fascists. That's what Hamas is. It is a fascist organization. So, Hamas, obviously, the most important thing here, I'm not going to talk about the atrocities. Everyone else is talking about that. I have strong feelings about that, but I'm not going to cover that right now. But just to finish this off about what is happening in the Middle East. The media doesn't cover it because the media only covers blood, right? Blood and guts, that sells. The peace process is hard, it's arduous, and it's a process. And you don't like talking about process. You don't like about the difficulty in meeting people, in traveling to the West Bank. I have a huge project in the West Bank. I go to the West Bank all the time. Very, very close friends and colleagues in the West Bank with whom I have been chatting with consistently. These are not Hamasniks. So the people, the millions and millions of people, and there are millions of people, I keep reiterating this, Palestinians and Israelis who are working toward a two-state solution, and I have to tell you why. Why are we working so hard to a two-state solution? We're working to a two-state solution because it is in the rational national interest of both Palestine and Israel. What do nations want? You should all be, I'm sure some of you anyway, are political science majors. What are the objectives of any country? Physical security, economic growth, protection of natural resources, increasing quality of life, and regional cooperation. There's a lot of others, but those are the big five. It is in Israel's interest, and the vast majority of Israelis agree, it is in Israel's interest that a Palestinian state alongside Israel that is economically strong, physically secure, strong institutions, good health care, commerce across the border. This is in Israel's national interest, obviously in Palestine's national interest. And that's what we're working toward. And Hamas says no. Hamas says there will never be a treaty with Israel. We're going to kill all the Jews and Christians that are in the land of Israel today, and we will turn the entire region into a caliphate. How dare you suggest to the Palestinians that this is in their national interest? How dare you? You have no right. And here's the last thing I'm going to say. This is going to make me really unpopular with my American friends. You talk about the humanitarian cost of this war, and it is above and beyond what is tolerable. And we all deeply regret all of our friends and family everywhere who've been killed, taken hostage, families being uprooted, all of that. Everybody knows is not only regrettable, but we're trying to do everything so it doesn't happen again. But A lot of this is couched in what the Israeli response has been to the attacks on October 7th, right? And it's very common among your crowd, Americans and Europeans in particular, say that Israel's response is way beyond proportional to what it should be. So I'm going to give you a couple of incidents to show you that you have lost your legitimacy. You have no right to criticize. Nobody has any right to criticize who's living in America or in Europe, whatever Israel does. And here's why. 1941, Japan attacks the naval base, the military base at Pearl Harbor, kills about 2,500 American servicemen and women. World War II, America enters World War II. And at the end of the war, America's response to Pearl Harbor is to target Nagasaki, Hiroshima, drop 2 atomic bombs, and kill 250,000 men, women, and children. Proportional? Let's go a generation later. Vietnam. Do you remember Vietnam's attack on the United States? No, there wasn't one. Problem with Vietnam was a difference in political theory. Nonetheless, the United States sends 58,000 American servicemen and women to their death and kills 2.5 million Vietnamese men, women, and children, and most of them with napalm bombs. That's fire coming from the sky onto their huts. That's typically how they were killed. 2.5 million. Let's go another generation. Al-Qaeda crashes into the World Trade Center, tragically killing 3,000 American souls, American civilians. The United States response is to carry out not one, but 2 wars against Iraq, who never attacked us, and Afghanistan, who never attacked us. Killing about 8,000 American servicemen and women, and 500,000 Iraqi and Afghani men, women, and children. So America has got, and Europe up to this point, has about 4 million people's blood on your hand. You've lost any right to criticize any other country with that kind of history. Let's go to Europe. Talk about genocide. Obviously, I hope that you understand the extent of the genocide of the Jewish people in Europe, 6 million, perpetrated by Germany. What was the response? 6 million died. The response is to put on trial a dozen Germans at Nuremberg, and provide Germany with the Marshall Plan, billions of dollars, and make it the strongest nation in Europe. That was the response to the Holocaust. So if you're European and you're American, you have lost any legitimacy to criticize anything that's going on here. None of our governments in the Middle East are responsive or satisfactory. In Israel, we hope to see a fundamental change in government. And I know the Palestinians want to see a fundamental change in their government. You have to remember that Hamas was elected only because the Palestinian Authority, Fatah, was so corrupt that they were looking for some kind of alternative. That's why they were elected. No one expected them to turn out to be the kind of terrorist organization that they become, and fascist organization that they are. So we will try and do our best here in Israel. We will continue to work with Palestinians. We will continue to work toward a 2-state solution. And we will continue to thwart any threat to our viability, to our existence, because we have a right to exist. Thanks for listening.